Sadly, the Philippines don't know what internet is at this moment, so we're gonna fill in for W/Slasher while we're at it. So without any further ado, welcome to Vanguard news video with all the bullshit. Let's get started. Stand up, Vanguard! Hey Cardfighters, welcome back to another Cardfight update. Today we've got a bunch of new reveals for the upcoming big booster Infinite Deity Cradle. Last week we got the reveal for Nova Grappler as well with our VR, and we saw what the new mechanic is going to be focused around. And this week we got the card for Nubatama, and we see some new gimmicks so we can anticipate what the rest of the cards are going to be. And they look quite interesting as they are right now, so let's jump right into these cards as we got 3, or should I say 3.5 cards revealed. And you will see in a second what I mean by that. So we're gonna start off with a new grade 1. It's an 8k, 10k shield grade 1. That's Evil Stealth Dragon Kurogiri. And its ability is act on rearguard circle, cost Soul Blast 2, and return this unit to your hand. And call up to 2 evil decoy tokens to the rearguard circles. Evil decoys are grade 0, shield 5k, and have intercept. So before I'm gonna talk about this card, let's take a quick look at what these evil decoy tokens are. They are basically a new type of token. Those are grade 0s with the intercept ability, 5k shield, and the skill continues a rearguard circle. It cannot attack, and it can intercept from the back row. So basically these are extra interceptors that you can put on the field, and you can use them for all kinds of abilities, either to bounce back or interact with them, but most importantly on their own, they have a nice extra 5k shield. So that's what the new tokens for Nubatama are going to be, the evil decoy token. It's a very interesting concept. Now if we go back to the grade 1, let's discuss how this skill works and if this is a good card or not. So basically for 2 Soul Blasts you generate 2 tokens. So for 1 card you turn it into 2 cards. It's a little bit similar to Fruit Basque Elf that we had for Neo Nectar that could generate 2 tokens. However, this card returns back to the hand while you do that, so you don't minus. It does cost 2 Soul Blast, so it's quite a heavy cost on its own, but you do generate 2 extra 5k shields, and it could either stop 2 attacks or 1 extra attack. But you retain the 10k shield in your hand, so that's actually pretty nice, and you can use it again if you have more soul to repopulate the field quite fast and quite effectively. So overall, it's not super flashy or super strong, but it's a very solid skill, and it can help you to generate more shield value or more rearguards that you might need for other cards, as we're going to talk about in a second. So, in my honest opinion, it's quite a solid card, and maybe not triple rare status, but definitely a good option for the deck. Then another card that we got was another grade 1, and that is Stealth Fiend Tataribue. And its abilities are auto and Vanguard circle. When its attack hits a Vanguard, draw a card. So this is basically what we see on other couple of groups of grade 1s that you want to write when you went second, and you have the unhit abilities that you get another draw potential out of it. So you can compensate the fact that you went second. Pretty solid skill, but it's very limited in use as what it is. Then we can take a look at the second ability, and that's continues a rearguard circle. During your turn, if you have a grade 0 rearguard, this unit gets power plus 5k. So it could be a 13k attacker or a 13k booster if you have a trigger onto the field or the evil decoy token that you can generate with the other grade 1. So you can see what we're going to have with the interactions with these grade 0s concept. It's similar to what we have with tokens, that cards do interact with tokens, but not necessarily as they just interact with grade 0s, but these tokens happen to also be grade 0s. I like this approach as they do work with non-token cards, otherwise these cards would be very one-dimensional and could only be used in a token generating deck. Now these cards can function even outside that concept or outside those archetypes, so that makes this card a little bit better. But overall, it's not really super amazing and doesn't really tell us a lot what deck is going to be or what it's going to focus. But overall, an interesting card, and I like the way that's designed. But then we're going to talk about the VR. This is where things are going to change quite a bit as we get a good clear view of what we're going to be playing with. As their new VR is Evil Stealth Dragon Akatsuki Hanzo. And its ability is act on Vanguard circle once per turn, cost, retire 2 grade 0 rear guards. Hold that for a second. And then you get the following effect. This unit gets power plus 20k, so it turns into a 32k beater right on the bat. Until the end of turn. Choose any number from all rear guards and return them to hand. So all rear guards means you can either pick yours or your opponent's rear guards. If your opponent's Vanguard is a grade 3 or greater, your opponent chooses card from his or her hand equal to the number of his or her cards returned with this effect, and discard them. So basically what it does is, you pay the cost, ditch, kill 2 grade 0, so basically 2 tokens that you generate with a grade 1. This is where the grade 1 really comes in handy, as you basically change this cost into a Soul Blast 2, and you need to have the specific card in your hand to do that. And you can bounce basically the entire field from you and your opponent, and your opponent needs to discard as many as units you just bounce on his side. It's not that if you bounce units on your side that he needs to discard. No, you bounce his field, and for that amount he needs to discard. The good thing about this card is that you can choose up to which unit you specifically want to bounce. So if they have a very strong on-place unit on the board, you just leave it there and they cannot benefit from that effect. So if you're up against a clan that has a lot of strong on-place, or maybe something like the new Blaster Dart build where they want to use the Blaster Darts as much as possible, you maybe want to leave that thing onto the field. So if we're going to analyze it, it's actually not really super strong in its own regards, as it's somewhat of a pseudo field wipe, as you can remove their entire field and they need to discard that many cards as you just removed. So it's similar to if we use a Kagero card like Blade Master that just retires the entire field. However, this is significantly weaker than a straight out field wipe, as 1, you bounce them back to hand and then they can choose which cards they basically discard. In the best case scenario for you, they discard the exact units you just basically bounced. But they can either just choose other cards that weren't bounced and they just couldn't use anyways, and then discard them and maybe reuse those units. Maybe they get extra shield value on hand, or they can reuse very powerful on play skill. A very good example is if they have 2 grade 3s in hand and you bounce 2 grade 2s, then they can just ditch the grade 3s that they couldn't use anyways, and then they have extra shield in hand. Or if those grade 2s have a good on-place effect, you just gave them more fuel for next turn. But that is not where the power of this card lies. First off, it got an additional plus 20k. Nubatama cannot really generate a lot of power right now with most of the cards, so the fact that you can swing in with a 32k Vanguard for almost no cost or no problem is pretty big. You finally can generate some powerful units, attacks. But another major thing is that you can just choose up to, and you can also choose your field. And so that means you can reuse very powerful on-place effects. And it's in the main phase, so if you have very powerful effects that can stack power or can give you draws or extra resources, so you can reuse those powerful skills once again in the same turn. So we have Tsunamasa that can generate soul. We can then generate 2 soul each turn. If we place it, then bounce back, place it again. We have other cards that can generate a little bit more power, but currently we don't have those in quite a quantity. We do have a new grade 2 also in this set that gains an additional 15k if you place it onto the field and you have a full field. You can just reuse that skill each and every single turn if you can build a full field with Hanzo, so you can have very strong powerful attackers. But another major thing is that we have an awkward grade 0 from the first set for Nubatama that could copy the power of one of your units and it gains that power and shield. That can really work well with Hanzo, as Hanzo becomes a 32k unit on its own, and then we can place the grade 0 onto the field. It also becomes a 32k unit, and it can boost, or it can just attack outright on its own. And if you have multiple copies of that thing, you can build very strong columns out of nowhere for almost no cost. And at the same time, you can do some field disruption against your opponent. And those are the general things you can do with Hanzo. You can reuse your powerful on-place effects, you can bounce and forcefully discard your opponent's hand in some regards, and you can circumvent also some annoying cards that could not be retired by field destructions. Something like Oracle Think Tank's Promise Dollar is immune to field destruction. But Hanzo can circumvent that by first bouncing it and discarding through that. So there are some applications where this kind of field destruction is a little bit better, but it's very specific. But that's where the standard approach stops. Now, as I stated, we are filling in for W Slasher, and W Slasher might want to do a no fight, no guard concept on this one, as it's a very solid standard no fight, no guard concept that you can do with Hanzo and the previous support. I'm primarily talking about Kokoshigura's and Jamio Kongo. Because what you can accomplish is you can attack 3 columns while your opponent has 0 cards in hand. It's very simple to achieve that. Or should I say, simple, because there are some hoops you need to jump through. What you can do is you have Jamio Kongo as your Vanguard, and your opponent is then forcefully to only have 6 cards in hand. But if you have Jamio Kongo with a Great 3 in your soul, then they only have 4 cards, and that's happening at the end of their turn. So you start your turn while they have only 4 cards in hand. Then you ride into Hanzo, and you use Hanzo's ability to basically bounce their entire field for only 1 card left. They have only 1 rearguard left. You bounce everything else, and they discard that many rearguards. So in that point, they have 4 cards in hand, and 1 rearguard onto the field. Then you're gonna place Kakashi Garage onto the field, use its ability, you bounce that last rearguard to their hand, and now they need to discard 5 cards. But 4 cards in hand plus that 1 rearguard is 5. So they need to discard their entire hand, and that's then the moment that you're gonna attack. And your Hanzo is 32, your Kakashi Garage is 26, and you can just build a column to the left that's 17 or 18, and even if they get defensive triggers, each and every single attack will keep hitting. Because the first one is 16, they get a defensive trigger, alright, you have 26. Oh, they get another defensive trigger, well, this 32. Yes. So that's basically a no fight, no guard for standard. So yeah, it's a very interesting VR as we have right now. They do have some interesting things. What I like about Nubatama at this point is they don't really have super strong cards, but they do have a lot of very interesting mechanics and they can work together. You have Hanzo that can utilize all these kinds of crazy interactions with on-place effects, but it also works well with Jamio Kongo as it can counter-fight Jamio Kongo's weakness, as your opponent might rush you down if you play Jamio Kongo, as you cannot forcefully then discard their cards. But if you then ride into Hanzo, for example, you can still forcefully put those units back to the hand and negate that early rush. And especially if you went second, because they then need to discard that amount of cards. So they are still discarding or minusing cards onto the field. That wouldn't have been the case with Jamio Kongo. And if they then think, oh, you're playing the Hanzo build, and they're starting to accumulate or stockpile a lot of cards in hand, you can then swing in with a very threatening Jamio Kongo as you then forcefully minus their hand to only 4 cards. So there are some very neat interactions between cards that we currently have in Nubatama, as well as this new concept with the evil Decoy token. So I'm very curious of where they're going to take this approach, as we only have 1 card that actually generate those tokens, and we have 1, or should I say 2 cards that somewhat interacts with them. We have the Grade 1 that was revealed today that interacts with a Grade 0, that's basically a token, and we have Hanzo that needs to retire 2 tokens or 2 Grade 0s. But in most cases, you're probably gonna retire 2 tokens, because I'm thinking we're gonna have a couple of more token generation cards. My big guess is that we're going to get the support Grade 3 in the likes of Trailing Rose. That's a unit that when we ride it or when we call it, we generate tokens, but probably when we ride it, it will generate a bit more tokens, maybe an additional one, and it would be a great first ride target when we went first, or a good support card for rearguard ability in combination with Hanzo. So that's my guess that we're going to get for at least some support focus style with this new concept. But that's basically everything for this Cardfight update. Let me know in the comments down below what you guys think of these new cards that we got for Nubatama. Are you very excited for this new concept with the whole evil Decoy token and what we probably can do with it? Is this going to be something you enjoy, or just a little bit disappointed in what Hanzo isn't super flashy or over the top that you might have hoped when we got something like God Hand for Nova Grappler? Let me know all your thoughts and opinions down below, as there is a lot of this discuss. I think there is a lot potential for Nubatama, but we have to wait and see what the other support is going to be, as Nubatama is always a very tricky clan, as it's never a one single card that breaks the clan. It's usually a combination of a couple of cards that makes or breaks the whole thing. But with that said, I want to thank my Patreon supporters. You guys are amazing for supporting the channel and making everything possible, as well as everything that's working behind the scenes. If you do want to support the channel, you can do that by just subscribing and hitting the bell button to be updated for future videos, as well as sharing the video and liking the video if you enjoy the content that we make on the channel. But if you want to support us directly, then head on over to patreon.com/Vanguard Insider and become a Patreon today. But with that said, I'm Mr. Time Leap, and I'll see you guys in the next one.